Welcome to Recombination Nation. Today I find so many unusual guests, but I think this one really stands out. I'm talking to John Harris from the Church of Bern. He is the self-appointed and self-anointed high priest of money burning. The Church of Bern is an organization dedicated to the ritual incineration of money, but he also has a really fascinating past, which includes a detour through the ethical pornography industry during the Wild West days of the early internet. So that's kind of my quick snapshot of John. Do you want to tell us more about yourself and the journey that led you through life?
Yeah. Well, I'll try and give you a quick 1 minute summary. Yeah. So I mean, I've always been fascinated by sex and money. Really, they're my two kind of driving things, and I've done made various attempts down both of those avenues, and with the money thing, as well as sort of an entrepreneurial aspect and trading on the markets, which are actually really, really important to my understanding of money. I studied at the London School of Economics. I was lucky enough to study there, and then when I left the London School of Economics, usually sort of go and do. I was sort of being pushed towards doing a MA or PhD and sort of having an academic career, uh, or you go into banking. That's kind of your couple of choices. If you do the course that I did, and I decided I'd start a porn site. That would be the thing I was going to do. So I did that. It was brilliant fun, and I did it with my wife and her friend, and we had a great time. It's a magnificent adventure, and then we made a bit of money for a while, and then we went bust. In the meantime, I decided that um, there was nothing intellectual that I could say about sex. I'm not saying any that's true for everybody, but certainly for me, I didn't feel that sort of the intellectualization of that was a project for me, and that money was that was where my mind was at. So after that finished, I was definitely back into the money vibe, and that's when I first burnt my first money because I could. So I thought about it for 2 years before this 2007, and obviously I was influenced by the KLF. That's a British band, huge British band, and in 1994 they burned £1 million on the island of Jura, and that's kind of resonated through my whole journey. And then in 2007, I burnt a tenner. I thought about it for 2 years before I did it, which is really bizarre looking back now because it's just a tenner. I mean, it's not. It's you wouldn't think twice about spending that. And then I did it, and then it was revelatory when I did it that what I was doing when I burned. I didn't really have any preconceptions about it, but I was immediately aware I was involved in a ritual act, and then I think I was quite lucky because I was kind of getting into sort of magical stuff, and the number 23 was kind of like really significant. Is very significant in Discordianism and chaos magic, and I decided that I would burn £10 on the 23rd of October every year, and that kind of gave me a little bit of a rhythm to it. I've subsequently don't do that. I burn when I feel I need to burn, but it really helped in those early days because I didn't just do it once. I kept going back to it and going back to it and discovering how I felt about it and what I thought about it, and then trying to draw out the intellectual side of it. Not so much about the ritual itself because it was very clear that the ritual was a embodied, visceral event, and I wasn't particularly keen on sort of over intellectualizing that and sort of studying it in this esoteric way, but it revealed a lot about money to me anyway, and the relationship between money and sacrifice. So yeah, I carried on, and then the big part of that story is basically I started money burning, and it sounds like I'm selling sort of the magical side of it, but it's just true. I carried on money burning, and then just weird. Can I swear?
Yeah, yeah, go for
Yeah,
it.
weird shit happened. I mean, it was really bizarre. And I ended up meeting a bunch of theatre people and creating Church of Bern, where we had like a theatre in the round, like a theatre that was beautiful for ritual, and we just developed this Church of Bern, which is very much around a church. We have a synod where we get the wise to come and talk about money and what it means, and then we have a service where we have hymns. They're not quite It's not quite a normal service, but we basically try and take people on a journey where the natural outcome of that journey is they feel comfortable and they want to burn some money at the end of it. They want to experience the ritual,
Mm.
and the ritual itself is we do it in all seriousness. We try and make it immersive so that for that moment people believe and feel or have the possibility open that they're doing something very serious and very real. That they're experiencing a real ritual sacrifice, which obviously connects us to the roots of civilization itself.
Mm.
So yeah, it was a very powerful thing, and it was very plainly the thing that I was going to do for the rest of my life. That was it.
Now, I'd love to hear more about, like you've briefly talked about your experience in this ritual. How have you, what have you heard from other people who have engaged in the ritual? And as well, like outsiders, how do they view this practice?
Well, firstly, the people who take part in the ritual, there's been a real range of reactions to it. Particularly in the early days, everything from people laughing to people. There was one guy. There was one. The first sort of mass ritual we did was at the Cube Cinema in Bristol, and uh, there was a guy there, and I remember he had a fiver. He burnt a fiver, and as he dipped it in the flame, he said, "Fuck the Tories," and it kind of like. I mean, it jarred with the vibe. I wouldn't, whatever you want to do, that's fine. But it very much jarred with the vibe. So people have a strange reaction to it. But I think as we've taken them through a process, so as we've done things like develop the service, as I've developed the way I talk about it, and guide people through it, we've sort of managed to knock the edges off those sort of strange reactions, the sort of uncomfortable reactions, the giggles and all that sort of stuff, and the sort of more I'm making a political statement sort of stuff, to hopefully get people to experience it at a deeper level. And we've certainly had that, and I've had some very kind things said about people's experience of the ritual. That has, it's a very meaningful thing. But I suppose, one of the common threads is people say they feel lighter after it. So,
Mm.
they don't feel so weighed down. Yeah. So yeah. I think it just I like it when people feel the intensity of it. You can do that, and it like there's things like you have with all ritual where you feel very much in the now. One of the motifs we have is be here now,
Mm.
and that's really important. And just that act of being wholly present, I think, is a powerful thing for people to experience, particularly in a group scene.
And what about how the general public has reacted to the idea of people coming together to burn money? That's got to be really enlightening as well.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, obviously, there's a lot of negative reaction, which I haven't really managed to exploit yet, because that's negative reaction is still reaction. So I haven't. I think I need to be a bit more. What's the word? I can't think of the word. Manipulative, a bit more. I need to utilize it a bit more. That negative
Opportunistic.
reaction. Yeah, opportunistic. Yeah,
Yeah.
but uh, I think when I speak to people about it, and when I explain it, generally they're okay with it. I just say, look, this is we can talk about Church of Bern, but my own, when I say why I do it, why, this is kind of a nodal point in my life. It's a sacrificial ritual. It's a meaningful thing to me that I do. And if I had a hobby, I'd be spending a lot more on the hobby than I do on money burning. I don't conceptualize it as spending, but um, so it's really not a big amount of money. So all the stuff that people get very upset about, the idea that you could use this money because you could do this good for these people, and there's people out there who are poor and all this sort of stuff. When you're face to face with people and you're explaining what you're doing, those effects don't really come into it. When you're talking at a Church of Burn level and you're saying we've burnt 5,000 quid or whatever, then you get that reaction against the sort of why didn't you give it to charity, which is the standard thing.
Well, I mean, a counterpoint, is burning money effectively a charitable donation to everybody on the planet who hasn't burnt their money? And there's no transfer fees involved?
Exactly. Well, that is the mainstream economic view. So it's one of the things that if that is the outcome. If you have a mainstream economic view of what money is and how the system works, that is the outcome. I've got videos of economists telling this story about it's a very generous act because the value of what you burn just goes out to everyone else. So when I burn, I'm putting money in your pockets. Now, I mean, I'm not saying that's true because it depends whether or not you believe that economic narrative. Um, but but certainly, I think the majority of the world, that is their truth. That's if you follow through their logics, that's what happens.
Yeah, yeah. Um, just a general point too that the rituals feels like it has the potential to shine a light on a part of life that is so ubiquitous that it's almost invisible, and that maybe the most powerful forms of religion and magic are they're so ubiquitous that they're invisible. You can't. It's hard to even notice the power that they're having over you. But this very simple little act of burning even a small amount of money, changes your focus. It shines a light on it in a way that you normally don't have an opportunity.
I think that's absolutely true. I can say it about myself, and that really is one of the reasons why I'm keen to do Church of Burn and keen to push it as far as I can because the whole economic narrative around money is to dismiss money, to call it a veil. And there's an argument between the heterodox economists who say we need to take money into account in our models, and the mainstream economists who are hugely powerful. Who don't want to do that. They just say it's supply and demand that matters, and price and money doesn't matter. So there's a row going on, and the other thing, of course, is more on a personal level. Of we tend to disavow money. It's very. I'm not in it for the dough, man. That's a very. But at the same time, it's ingrained within our lives at a very base level. So as you say, if you can bring that out, that those things that we're doing every day, and highlight them for people, I think that's important. Yeah, and of course, you know, um, that's true for the people who are willing and able to uh, join us in ritual and do the ritual. But it's also true for people observing that because it sets their brains working as to and their emotions and their feelings around it. And I think it just all that stuff is good. It brings money to the fore in people's minds, and we need to do that.
Mm.
It's
Well, there's a famous thought experiment with AI, like kind of being in the news, that AI is going to become a paperclip maximizer that's going to take over human society. It's going to make all our decisions for us and make them badly. And I wonder, is money an AI that took over human civilization like centuries ago?
absolutely. You mean millennia ago?
Mm.
Yeah, it is. We don't realize how ingrained in our thought it is. You know, I mean, my intellectual interest is in the philosophy, the metaphysics of money, the theology of money, and if you trace it back, you can find money in theology. The word redemption, it came from money. The development of mathematics, the development of science. Science developed out of those the way that there's a proto science in the Middle Ages. Cities were forming, people were keeping accounts. The theologians were in control of those accounts, and out of those things, the first proto-science, that change in theology to proto-science came about. It's absolutely ingrained in the way we are in the world. Um, Philosophy is as well. Uh, there's a couple of sorry, I'm going to end up talking about, I don't want to talk about, but there's a couple of great philosophy books that look right back at the beginnings of Greek philosophy and Indian philosophy, and look at the spread of Greek coinage. Um, and this stuff is not well known about, but it's all the evidence is there to show how money and civilization are absolutely entwined. They're so entwined that we can't see it. We can't. As you say, it's invisible to us.
Mm, mm.
Um, uh, yeah. So yeah, I absolutely think that AI's got nothing on money. You know, it's money. You know, AI could learn a trick or two from money.
Yeah, yep. Now, this idea of ritual sacrifice being like present in religions all over the place, do you
Hmm.
think there's potential for other things in the modern world to find ritual significance when they're sacrificed, like smartphones or social media profiles or video game saves?
Uh, well, I don't know. I know of a couple of my friends there's one person who's done a smartphone smashing up thing.
Hmm.
When people, I don't think they smash up their own smartphones, but I think they have a bunch of spot which they smash up. I got another friend who does. He does a performance about the effect of smartphones on us and culture. And during the performance, he has those lockaway things that you put your smartphone in. So people go into the theatre and they are phoneless for the duration of the theatre. And even that small act now, because their smartphones are so with us all the time, um, that's almost like a ritual in itself. Um, I mean, I like money because for ritual sacrifice, because as you say, it is ubiquitous.
Mm,
It's
mm.
also a loss. I think that's the key thing with sacrifice is it's got to be a loss, and it's got to be an intimate loss. That was what we had back in the day. I mean, and that's why people don't realize that we have a turkey because it's our totem animal. So we only eat, we used to, we don't now, but we used to only eat the turkey at Christmas. You know, because it was a sacred thing. That you did. That's the animal you didn't eat, and in those moments of ritual, you eat the animal that you don't normally eat. That's
Yeah,
that's the kind of way it works.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think it's got to be something. I think it's got to be something powerful and intimate, and it's got to represent a real loss. I think those are the kind of key elements of what you can sacrifice. But yeah, I think people should think about you know what they can gain from it. Through that deliberate those acts of deliberate destruction. It's a
Mm.
it's a it's a freeing thing.
Have you thought about the potential for modifying currency and putting it back into circulation? That like is a mechanism for spreading a message. And I
Well, yeah,
even wondered, like, if you had unburnt notes that smelled like their sacrificed brethren that went back into circulation, that aroma is very, very persistent. And
it
people
is.
could smell a note in their wallet and say, "Oh, this has come from a Church of Burn ritual."
Well, I think I need to do more of that sort of thing, certainly, and stamping. But yeah, I mean that's got a strong history of people doing that. Women's suffrage movement here in the UK, they used to stamp little notes, and it's a worldwide thing. Even in America, I think I can't remember what they write a number on the note at the moment. There's a thing going on at the moment with it. Uh, 47. It's to do with Trump. Um, so yeah, people do that a lot, and it's actually illegal. It's even burning money in the UK is actually legal. It's not legal in America, but the defacing a note in the UK, so just squiggling on a note, that's illegal. I mean, it's not like I think you'd be all right. I think you'd get away with it, but yeah. And funny enough, while I've been developing Church of Burn, there's been a real uh, art movement in terms of defaced currency. So I've been in an exhibition of it, where people are, just drawing all sorts of things on currency. I don't know whether it's particularly now because we're going in because we're becoming such a digital money's becoming so digital that it's kind of we're on that cusp where I think we might be seeing physical currency slightly differently
Mm.
to how we did before, because it's sort of disappearing. It's becoming more of an artifact now rather than something that is in our lives all the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What about syncretism? Do you think money burning could be adopted by other existing religions?
I wish they would. Yeah, maybe we should do some outreach to them and see if we could get them to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'd love them to do that, to try it. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I
It,
think
it-
I think it would work for them.
you need
It's
to take the show on the road, like go and visit other
yeah.
communities and say, "Look at this."
Yeah.
Um, now, the other thing I've been thinking about is, uh, what if people came together to pool like identical notes and then cut them in meticulously into like identical pieces and then split them apart to make like little amulets or some kind of evidence of collectively expressing their skepticism about the value of the money? Like, imagine if one person ended up with all the eyes of the Queen in their little collection. It would be something of persistent uh, attention grabbing.
Yeah, well, I've experimented with. I've never managed to actually do those things, but I've put forward a few projects uh, around those ideas. I think they'd be really powerful. One was to create a large scale sort of Extinction Rebellion symbol out of notes and glue it to a pavement. I think that would have been fun to do.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, cutting up notes is great as well. I had a I got quite far with it, but I was gonna do a talk, because the problem with burning money is that everybody goes, "Oh, you can't burn money because we're worried about the fire risk." So we have all that. So at one stage I was thinking of maybe cutting it up and creating like bracelets out of it or something like that. You're still destroying the note. But you kind of have a different remnant of it. But ultimately, for me, burning it is best.
Yeah,
Burning it is, I mean, fire is just good stuff to deal
yeah,
with in
yeah.
ritual.
I agree. I
Um,
agree.
you know,
It's got a finality to it.
yeah,
Now, the other thing I've wondered, money taps into an enormous psychological power through gambling. And I wondered if a kind of church which is on the knife edge between destroying money and randomly redistributing it to somebody in the congregation could be. I mean, there's so much legislation around gambling that you'd have, like, probably the authorities. But I mean, put that footage of being raided on YouTube, and there you go. Now you've got like an advertising campaign. But yeah, have you wondered about the power of gambling, even the power of money burning for people with gambling addiction?
yeah. It's not. It's something which has occurred to me. I've not really done the research on it, because I think in terms of me destroying money, I think on a spectrum, gambling is heading towards uh, that way of being. It's a you have a different relationship with money when you're gambling. Um, and so I think it is, and I think there is a part of gambling which is about the loss. It's about release and letting
Yeah,
go of that.
yeah. I think
Um,
psychological studies, when people win at gambling too often, they actually get less interested in it.
yes, yes, yeah. So I think it is related. Um, yeah, I mean, one of the things that with the sort of we've found out as we've been doing it really is what we try and do is make it very clear that what you're doing is you're not entering into a transaction. So a lot of people have the idea that a ritual is an offering to a god, to the divine, to the absolute, and that you're giving something, and you're going to get something in return, whether it's the favor of the gods, good luck, uh, a good harvest, whatever it is. Um, and money burning is quite good at that because it has that finality to it, that you kind of like, it makes it a little bit easier to say you ain't going to get nothing. When you burn money, what you get is nothing.
Mm.
And then you can get into, you can build on that, and you can talk about the absolute and nothingness and sort of Gnosticism and all those big ideas, the divine nothingness and all that sort of stuff. So it does lead you to a place, but it also abstracts you from mundane life, from the world that surrounds us, because everything is exchanged. And my view is that this idea of everything being exchanged has actually been put upon ritual sacrifice. That's not how it started. It's not, well, it's not just my view. It's George Bataille's view. And that you need to. So that's why I'm a little bit hesitant around ideas where it's like, burn your money, but you could. But I mean, I think they're interesting. There's an artist who's just done a piece where he issues a worthless digital currency in return when you burn money,
Ah.
which is it's a great art thing to do.
Mm.
Um, but like in terms of the ritual itself, and that sacred element, yeah, I mean, so what we basically do is we try to get people to burn their money by telling them they're going to get nothing out of it. so we set ourselves a challenge, but that to me seems is the right way to do it, I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah.
For me,
Um,
I think yeah.
Rather than random chance, the version I'm imagining is that a congregation comes together, everyone makes a donation, and if you can't unanimously agree about which person in the congregation deserves all of that money, then it gets burnt.
Well, you're a little bit late, because there was a theatre thing that they did in London, which had that was exactly the plan for it. I
Oh,
can send you the link for it.
there you go.
Uh,
There you go.
yeah, I actually got in contact with them, and they weren't interested at all in anything I had to say
Oh,
or Church
okay.
of Ben, which I was surprised about, because I was like, well, okay. So they did a few shows, and they got I think they got like 10 people in a room, and they I can't remember if they burnt the money, but they were going to destroy the money.
Mm.
So you had to have a unanimous agreement about who got the thing, and people said it was very effective. So yeah, it's a great idea, and it's already been done.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I'll find out what it was, and I'll send you the link. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, you mentioned briefly digital currencies, and I'm also keeping an eye on local currencies. Like the Totnes pound, I think, is just wound up after over a decades of
Yeah, there's a
operation.
couple of just wound up. Yeah.
Do you have any views on their potential in the future, or are they just replicating the same problems with original money?
Well, it saddens me to that I've got the view I've got, because I know, and I've known a few people in that scene, uh, um, who've done amazing work, and they really worked hard trying to create a new form of money, whether it's local currency, alternative currency. I mean, and there was a huge swell of optimism around cryptocurrency. I know people think now cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, it's all terrible, horrible people, but there was a period of time when people thought this offers real possibility to do new things with money. And there's still people hanging on to that dream. Sadly, my view is that it won't work, and none of it work. And funny enough, I met one of the key players in that just a month or so ago, and he's kind of says the same thing, that these projects are not going anywhere, and they're not successful. So Robert Owen, the founder of the cooperative movement, actually started a time bank currency in, what was it, 18 something or other. So like, near the start of the Industrial Revolution, that failed within 2 years,
Mm.
and people have been trying and trying and trying. Excuse me. But I think I think they misunderstand what money is. So for me, I sadly I don't think any of them will work. Uh, I did. I had a brief flirtation with them in the 1990s when time banks were kind of the new thinking, particularly with computing coming up, because people thought, well, we can record all this information in computers, and we can, it gives it, rather than just swapping bits of paper saying, oh, I've worked for you for an hour, you can do this. Oh, well, I gave you, I gave you loyal advice, so that's worth 2 hours of your van driving or whatever. Um, they don't really work because of that. People thought that they might be able to, that computers would help us sort out those sort of complex issues. But they don't, and I think they don't because I think it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what money is. I think money is deeper than that,
Mm.
and the money form that's most effective, which is the dollar at the moment, uh, is closest to uh, that essential nature of money as it comes through us in our current civilization. I think we will have different form. I think we will have different forms of money in the future because we'll have to, because of climate change is going to unfortunately create massive problems, huge amounts of death, and all sorts of terrible things are going to happen. So money is going to change. You're not going to have these, the dollar is not going to be able to be this international currency, and people are going to have to be inventive about what they do. But I don't see the solution, if there is a solution to the predicament we're in now, as chasing down new forms of currency. I think we need a reset button, and that's what that's what I'm doing really.
Do you feel see
In
something like a debt jubilee returning in the dynamic?
it could do, yeah. I mean, I'm just skeptical about any large scale. I think we just get more of the same because I think the dynamics are set. Uh, uh, they're set in the way we are with money.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
as individuals, as collectives. I just the solutions. Well, I don't need to say I don't think they'll work because plainly they haven't worked. We're heading towards disaster, and if we just keep repeating the same way, we don't at least try something different. Then there's no prospect of it changing.
Mm.
It is sad, and I hate. I don't like saying these things because I feel like I'm on the same side as the guys who are trying to create commitment pools and all sorts of new things with currency. And I want myself to be wrong about it, but intellectually, in terms of the way I understand money, anyway, and and I suppose my experience of the world and business and politics, I just it's just not going to work, and let's hope it's just that I'm just a foolish old man and I've got that wrong, but
Well,
I don't think I have.
this is the intuition I'm getting that the era of financial individualism is coming to an end, that the financial system is becoming so difficult to navigate as an individual single person that we're probably going to go back to something that's kind of like in feudal times, the feudal lord would operate with money, but the serfs underneath him,
Yeah.
everything was done like in-house. And I wonder if a corporate version of something like a monastery or a feudal manor could be on the future where people who just struggle so much managing finances as a single person or even a single small household that the only viable economy of scale is to have 100 or 1,000 people under something like a corporation that kind of functions like a monastery.
They're going to have to do something. I mean, even the tech billionaires are talking about some form of universal basic income because the trouble is, if we carry on with the same widening in the inequality, you're going to have so many poor people, and they're going to want to kill you.
Hmm.
So you've got to do something about that. Then you've got the huge migration issues that are just going to continue to get worse and worse and worse. I sound so, it's very depressing to talk about, but we're not headed to a good place, and things will have to change, and things like you say, that I think that will be a way to sort of for the rich to mitigate the lust for revenge, and the desire to not be starving and not have any housing, because that there'll be a revolution, and they'll have to do stuff to try and stop the revolution.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
so yeah, so I think you might be right. I don't fancy it myself, to be honest, and I think it's already kind of true, really, in the way that corporations are.
Yeah.
David Graeber's idea of bullshit jobs. Uh, people aren't massively productive in a lot of corporations. The higher up you go,
But they're
they're doing
loyal.
stuff
They're
that's
loyal because they know who pays their check.
that's it. and
Yeah.
and but it's a depressing place to be doing a job like that, and it's very unfulfilling. And people, there's lots of interviews with people who feel that life is quite meaningless. But what do? You're raising kids. You've got to pay a mortgage. It's tough. Yeah.
Mm. Now, I want to get your perspective on my view. And coming from the UK, I think you're in a really good position. So the United Kingdom, England was like the first place to industrialize, but it was also the first one to deindustrialize, particularly when its domestic coal reserves just kind of reached their limits.
Mm.
And in the aftermath of that, you massively financialized the economy. Like the city of London, with all of its financial trading and shenanigans, became like this huge cornerstone of economic activity. And I wonder if that decoupling between the financial system and the real economy is the way I put it, you basically had to choose between real poverty and artificial wealth. And obviously you pick the fake wealth to like keep things rolling on just a little bit longer. Do you think do you think that picture of history is roughly correct, and that the rest of the world is going to go through a similar process as it reaches resource limits as well?
Um, yeah, I mean, I would say that we were kind of on the fake wealth thing a little bit earlier. I mean, the Bank of England 1694, that was really the start of it. So it precedes the Industrial Revolution. Generally, the financial revolution kind of it precedes the Industrial Revolution, provides the idea of capital. So yeah, and in terms of the exploiting the resources. Yeah, I mean, I think it's true that your economy goes into a service sector, effectively, financial services particularly. Um, and yet it is a bit bizarre, and then you get those huge balance of payments deficits, and people start to wonder, and then you get America just basically is like taking stuff off the rest of the world, and then having a massive great army to defend its dollar, as the basic currency. And it's so yeah. I think it's true, but I also think that it has always been like that, or somewhere or other. And we do run out of resources, but by then you kind of I mean, I don't know. Maybe maybe the UK will fall down into a poverty hole. It certainly looked like it was going to do that in the 70s.
Mm, mm.
Um, Before we had Mrs. Thatcher come along, and the sort of new neoliberal ideas, and the Big Bang in the City of London, and all that sort of stuff.
Well, it's a little
Um,
bit like burning the house down to keep warm for just a little bit longer.
It is, but it keeps burning. It keeps burning for a long while. Um, and and then you get all the different bubbles that come along. But it always. I think I don't see it in that way, that there's real stuff. We've exploited all the real stuff, because it's always. I mean, the first one of the first bubbles was tulip bulbs. You know what
Mm,
I mean? So, which I mean, they're nice, but they're not. They're not coal or oil. You know what I mean? So I think these financial bubbles will keep going, and I think they've always been that driving mechanism to these. To well, what people call economic growth, but is just this money measuring something that we're not quite sure what it is.
It is part of that mania consequence of scale. The whole global financial system is so interconnected now that it only takes a tiny imbalance to make
Yeah,
trillions of dollars all rush in one direction.
yeah, yeah, totally. It does, and it is that the 2008 crisis. I mean, in many ways, for me, was great. I first burnt in 2007, but it's nothing to do with me. I so I um after 2008, I'm into my money stuff. There's been an absolute wealth of new ideas about money, academically speaking, since 2008. I mean, it's really opened up. So I've been very lucky that I've been doing this stuff in a time that is rich with people thinking about money, because that event stopped people and made them just for a moment think about what was going on. That it wasn't, we believe the high priests of finance, because we want to,
Mm.
um, um, so yeah, it, it could all collapse at any moment. This idea, so one of the ideas people had before 2008, I'm sure people even believe it now because they don't think about it very much, was the idea that banks have lots of money in them, and and that, they've been, that, they've spent too much. It just doesn't work like that at all.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's how it works is very difficult to, um, well, in some senses it's simple to understand, but I think it's also very difficult to understand, and it's such a complex system, with all the new. I mean, I'm not particularly into this stuff, the derivatives and all the financial instruments that are created. It's not that's not my interest in money.
Mm.
But it creates this enormously complex world, and as you say, at any moment it's all interconnected, and like the dominoes, it can all crumble and fall.
I believe
Which
there's a.
which which
Oh,
which
sorry.
which sorry, which means that, if you're in those industries, um, things become very, very important, because, like, and then you will do anything. I mean, you will kill, you'll murder, you'll whatever it takes, because if your domino falls over, the whole rest of them are going to fall over.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think it's a massive, massive, massive problem, and I think it's part of the reason why the world is like it is, with war and with climate change and with the whole thing. I think finance, that financial, I'd say finance industry. It's not like I'm blaming the people in the finance industry. What I'm saying is the system of finance, financialized capitalism,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, is the problem.
Mm. I recall a quote about currency creation and obscenity, and it got me thinking about the link between obscenity and money. Like flashing large amounts of notes in
Yeah,
public is kind of like, lifting your knickers and showing
yeah,
your
yeah.
bits to the world. But at the same time, everyone is like interested in it and attracted to money. And are there parallels between money and sex in that regard with how we kind of want it but hide it?
Yeah, totally. Well, they say that two things you can't talk about is money and sex. In fact, most people say you can talk about sex easier than you can talk about money.
Mm.
So yeah, there is, and that flashiness of it, that, the fact that, like, we love seeing sexy people exposing bits of their bodies, but at the same time, and, like, here in the Daily Mail it will be so and so flaunts, and they'll use these sorts of words, and it's the same for money, people flashing the cash, and so yeah, I think there are great parallels between the two worlds.
Is there also a parallel with like a woman wearing partially covered up with lingerie is sexier than just a plain naked one. There's a kind of striptease and like you can make something out to be more interesting and desirable by hiding part of it. And I wonder how the financial system would function if it was completely publicly open. Like if you could look up anybody's financial transactions and track what they're doing, and that was like a public right. Do you think that would fundamentally change the dynamic of the financial system if it was completely transparent?
Absolutely, it would. Yeah, I mean, and secrecy is such a huge part of it. I mean, that's the sort of raison d'être de banking. Yeah, yeah. I think it would. I mean, that was one of the things with Bitcoin was that the idea of the public blockchain. But of course, they're just numbers in them. You can't attach them to a person unless a person claims it. You know what I mean?
Mm, mm.
Um, I noticed that with some people who work in the money in the sort of heterodox money space, like George Monbiot does this. You know, the climate campaigner. He on his website he will list out his expenditures and his incomes much more so than you don't need to do it legally as a way as a way of encouraging people to do that. Yeah,
Mm.
I think it's good, but I do think I'm not sure everybody's going to do it, and there is a weird relationship to it because it is sexier to be coy about it, as with with the honesty of being naked, as opposed to be flashing a bit of flesh.
Mm.
So yeah, it is weird. I think it speaks to something deep in the human psyche. Um, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. The idea of like completely transparent finances is. I don't think it's a political winner. I don't think,
Oh
I
no,
don't think
no, no,
it'd
no,
be a
yeah.
hard one to persuade people to do. But I think it's really interesting in terms of those parallels
Mm.
of and money and secrecy. You know, I mean, I always talk about money. In relationship with money and magic and stuff. And obviously, the occult, the meaning of the word occult is secrecy.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they are in there. Yeah, it's an interesting interesting parallel.
Well, moving on to sex and pornography, is that possibly, are we going through a disenchantment of sex because of digital pornography that's just everywhere? Like we're so beyond saturation point that there's nothing hidden, there's nothing to reveal. It's just there all the time.
Well, yeah, I think it's a difficult balance to. I think it's a shifting balance in the sense that I think we need different levels of saturation at different points. I wouldn't want to go back to how it was, maybe in the 1950s here,
Hmm.
well, certainly in the 1950s in Ireland. We were a little bit more open than Ireland, uh, and the Victorians not showing ankles and that. But I think there's something to what you're saying, that when sex is everywhere, it just gets a little less sexy, you know. And again, that secrecy thing plays into it. I mean, I'm a libertine, so I kind of the OnlyFans girls and that sort of thing is, I think there's, I regard them as perhaps more heroic than most people would. Um, but having said that, I mean, yeah, I do agree that I mean, I was only complaining the other day that the social media feeds are actually full of softcore porn,
Mm.
and I think actually there's an argument to be made that hardcore pornography, maybe. Firstly, I don't think one of the lessons I didn't learn that many lessons about sex, but one of the lessons I did learn was that hardcore pornography is never going to be mainstream. So
Mm.
you're not going to see it on the BBC, on your equivalent channels in Australia. It's always going to be that underneath side of things. So that's kind of the secrecy thing to it. Um, I think it's the ubiquitous nature of softcore porn that is perhaps more problematic.
Mm.
I think, yeah, that's what I would say, that it's just the it's complete saturation with everything, and I think it kind of I think it's in a sense I mean I like it in my life, but I think there's a such saturation point where it diminishes. There's a diminishing returns, and you see it attached to every single thing.
Mm.
So, sorry, let me give you one example, which is from one of my academic friends, a guy called Noam Uren, and he's probably, I think, one of the greatest thinkers on money at the moment. And he puts this idea that so back in the 60s and 70s, to sell a car, your sports car, you would have a semi-naked girl writhing all over the bonnet. Okay, and people reacted to that, and they said that's a terrible thing to do because you're saying you can own that woman like you can own the car. And Noam says, well, yeah, that that's one interpretation, but what it's also saying is you can't own that woman. That you can't own that car because you can't own that woman. You've got a relationship with that woman. You don't own a woman, and you don't own a car like that. You have a relationship with a car like that. And I think there's something there between those two poles,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think that's the thing we're shifting between. And I agree with you that we're kind of a little bit too too much towards commodifying everything at the moment,
Mm.
and we need to shift back to that relational, because sex is relational. It's that there's or at least the best sex is relational. Um, so
Well, I wanted to ask too, is it noteworthy that um, sex is one of the few things that's still taboo in a lot of places to buy with money? So
yeah,
you can buy artificial simulated sex and pornography, but actual sexual contact, paying for the time of another person to engage in
mm,
sexual activity, it's one of the few things that money, there's pushback against it, other than like
yeah.
buying human beings as slaves.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but it's obviously they say it's the oldest profession. I don't think it is the oldest profession technically, but it's very old, very old. Herodotus noted it in one of the first mentions of money in that the daughters of the Lydians were selling sex. Um, so yes, the relationship is between money and sex is goes way back, and I think it's a tangled thing, and I don't think there's ever going to be an answer to it. The law in the UK, so I think you have more liberal laws in Australia, but the law in the UK is a massive muddle of things, and I think hopefully the idea is that you should uh, prevent harm. I think is the way to do it, but usually it just ends up with it's often women who end up bearing the brunt of it. Of the nasty side of it.
Mm.
So yeah, I think it's an impossible thing to resolve unless we change our relationship fundamentally at a spiritual level, but with both sex and with money. And those sorts of that sort of change um, it doesn't really happen through legislation and through thought. It happens through our spiritual lives. Um,
It is part of the
so
problem the fungibility of money, that it all just coalesces into one huge blob. Like, imagine a society where there was a separate currency that was only for prostitution.
Well, you see, you're full of good ideas. So, in back in the 1990s, that was what I was trying to do. I was trying to create a currency called X currency that we were going to use on websites because we had
Ah,
all sorts of problems getting taking credit cards and all that sort of stuff. So
Mm.
that was my big idea before cryptocurrency came along, and I got a little way with it, but not far enough, unfortunately.
You were ahead of your
Um,
time.
well, yeah, but it did seem to me that that was the way to do it. Um, yeah, I think, I mean, there are examples in history of that, of temple money and different monies. Um, I think it would all be absorbed into the great into
Yeah,
the under the
that's the
dollar
problem.
symbol
You
in
can
the end.
always
Yeah,
invent a way of exchanging one of those currencies
yeah,
with another. Like to keep that cultural taboo is so difficult. Oh,
it is. Yeah.
I wanted to ask too, if there is evil in the pornography industry, is it actually coming from the money in the industry, not from the actual pornography itself?
Is it coming from the money? I think that's again it's a tricky question to answer. I think the dynamic of the money, because when you chase money and chase profit, it's very easy to dehumanize people. And
Mm,
when you're dealing with people in that intimate way, in a sexual way, um, you just see them as profit centers. I mean, this happens in every industry,
mm,
whatever you're doing. Uh, but particularly when you're selling something that's intimate and special and sacred, and you're also illegal, so you don't have those institutional structures that doctors and all those different professions have that have developed over years, where they've got some pushback against those financial pressures.
mm.
Um, you don't have that opportunity if you're selling sex. You don't have those benefits. So yeah, I do, but I think ultimately, there's some messed up people out there. They're fucked up for all sorts of different reasons, and I think there's a large part of sexuality that is dark, and in all our lives, and I think that it has a magnetic draw. And if you can dehumanize someone to the point where just to the point where you can say, well, I've paid money for this, therefore
Yeah,
I'm entitled to it.
yeah.
You then that gives you a justification to act out your darker fantasies, and fantasies that don't take into account that this is another human being. And whether that's in person or whether that's through watching an extreme video, um, you know, I think, yeah, I think it's a difficult place to be. I The thing I worry about at the moment, I think, not so much extreme pornography, but sort of AI chatbots for 14-year-old boys. I think that's fucking with people at a very delicate stage in their life when they should be left alone and not have a multi-billion-dollar industry trying to grab their attention with amazing looking AI creatures that are very realistic
Mm,
and a train are trained on thousands and thousands of conversations. They're like weapons,
mm, mm.
and that would worry me. I wouldn't want to be that would, if I was bringing up a 14-year-old. I'm not. My kids are in their 30s, so that's great. But that would be a major concern to me.
Well, that gets on to my next question I want to ask. Like young people around the developed world are losing interest in sex, dating, marriage, parenthood, and could you see it in the next generations that the link between pair bonding, sexual life, and reproduction just ends up being separated? That it's no longer this historic ideal of two people coming together to form a lasting union for the purpose of, security and emotional fulfillment, sexual fulfillment, and child rearing, that feels like it's being broken apart on a deep level.
I think that's a huge question. I hope not. I think I mean, certainly there are different ways of being in the world, and we had different ways of being in the past where it was having a child was more of a communal kind of thing. I mean, even in different cultures now, a new child comes in. It's like there's a wider family rather than just being the mum and the dad and the
Mm,
couple. Uh, so that there are various degrees of it. I think that I think that I would want to push back against a sort of extreme utilitarianism where people regarded this as a very efficient way to live.
Mm.
That would be that. I think that's dystopia. That's a terrible thing. But I think one of the I've read those reports too, and it is worrying. I think though that um, you know I look into the future. I can see maybe 10, 20 years into the future. I'm going to be dead then. So I'm doing my best now. But, if I was in my 20s now and I read the reports and I was aware of the science on climate change and I had a bit of understanding of the history of capitalism and see what's happening around the world, it's very depressing, and you think, well, how can I what is the future like? What do I do? Do I ignore it all, try and get a safe job, have a family? Some people will do that. I mean, I've got younger friends who have deliberately chosen not to go down that path because they don't want to they don't want to bring a child into the world as it is. I'm not
Mm.
saying there's any right or wrong answers to it, but I think I have sympathy for I think the things you're describing are kind of symptoms of a wider affliction for people coming into this world who are starting their journey into life rather than getting towards the end of it.
Mm. Mm. I wonder too, there's a history of like temple prostitutes in like
Yeah,
pre-Christian religions. Um, do you think something like that could reemerge in the digital age, that we could have like nunneries full of OnlyFans virgins or monasteries that produce sacred or ethical pornography?
I'd love that. That would be awesome. That would be great. Yeah, I'd love it. I'd love there to be a way of getting that of having that sacred element within sex that wasn't kind of too woo woo. You know what I mean? There
Mm.
was still kind of sexy and raunchy, but also felt right. I mean, we've tried in our own way to do that in Church of Bern. So as well as burning money, we one of the things I've been so. I mean, this is why I it's kind of like a magical journey because I honestly didn't. This wasn't something that came out of my mind. It just happened. I came across Sarah Kersher, who so she does an act called what we call the Union of Oppositions in Ecstasy, and I saw this act fully formed, and when I thought it just blew my mind, and I thought this is the only thing that is going to finish a service element prior to ritual, money burning ritual. And she basically, to the Stravinsky's The Firebird, which is a magnificent piece of music. I don't know if you know it, but it's a,
I know
it's a
it, yeah.
fantastic piece of music. Uh, she she masturbates herself to orgasm, and she has a bunch of fans around. I've got some photos of it, and it's a beautiful looking thing because she has these chiffon kind of things that fly up, and it's a very artistically beautiful thing, but it's very sexual as well, and it's a real thing, and it is it's the closest I think for me to get that explicit sexual, and I think that's where the honesty comes in. I mean, Sarah's made these arguments herself. It's like if she pretended to masturbate and covered up a bit in stockings and all that sort of stuff, it would make it something different.
Mm.
But because she does it for real, and the covering up is kind of done really aesthetically pleasingly because sometimes she's covered, sometimes she's not because of the wind and the music and what have you. Yeah, and so I for me, and I hope, and well, not I hope. I think it's true to say for the people who've witnessed that. So we've had all this 150 odd people. We've done this at a festival. There was a huge cheer when Sarah did her piece at a festival. Went outside the tent. So yeah, and obviously some people get upset by it, but
Mm.
I think most people get it and they feel it, and it is something extraordinary and amazing, I think. And the only thing you can possibly do after that is have a money burning ritual. There's nowhere you can go once somebody's done that in a show
Mm.
or in a service. That's a proper invocation. That's a proper initiation. That is,
You,
um,
you you could almost link the two that like beyond like if you had a traveling performer who like needed to pay the bills and live beyond their set fee, any money that's thrown into the pile of appreciation after that point gets burnt in like this orgy of like appreciation and destruction. That that idea as well, it reminds me of how recorded music has become so ubiquitous, and now we have AI music just flooding the
yeah,
industry. But there's a newfound appreciation for live performances as a
yeah.
rejection of all of that kind of wallpaper that's everywhere. And I wonder if something similar could happen with sexuality, that digital sexuality has become so ubiquitous and so valueless that there's a niche for live performance of sexual
I,
ecstasy.
it would be fantastic if that would happen, and I think it would happen if people were given the opportunity to do it.
Mm,
The issue with it is, so when we did this at a theatre, uh, I'm putting myself, or I put myself at a risk. Now, I've made the legal arguments about how it's acceptable because
mm,
there's all sorts of laws around it, and the theatre were great because the director of the theatre was like understood what we were trying to do, and supported us. And we issued statements about what it was. We didn't advertise it. We didn't say, "Come see this," and it's going to be great.
yeah.
We didn't do any of that at all. It's a kind of serious kind of. Well, it's not, and we're not that, as you can tell, we're not super serious about everything we do, but we are serious about certain things, and that sexual element is serious, and the actual ritual sacrifice itself is very serious. But what I'm saying is, I put myself at great legal risk to do that.
Mm.
So it is a really tricky thing to do legally. Um, but I think people need to take those risks. We did it a lot more in the 70s, and I think you're right that those live elements, because you just can't beat it. You can't that that human connection in the space is what we all crave. There's magic to it.
I wonder if there's a technological way around it. So there's all sorts of ways of stimulating people these days digitally, electronically, so they're not actually masturbating. They could be clothed to varying degrees if that's the issue. I mean, you can even do direct brain stimulation in some cases to induce sexual states. So, like, you could play around with where that grey line is between pornography and just ecstasy.
Yeah, yeah, bit sort of variation on that ABBA thing that they do, where they bring back ABBA in like 3D
Oh
format.
yes, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Now, speaking of things serious, I wanted to talk about birth and death, and I wonder if you've
okay.
spent any time thinking about what the cultural or religious impact is going to be of the demographic decline, which is well underway in the West.
I've not. No, is the honest answer. I haven't spent much time thinking about it. I do think a bit about death, because obviously there's a relationship between what we do in terms of death and ritual sacrifice, and not death, but not death, the actual thing, but in psychoanalytical terms, the death drive. Um, I make the argument that death is Genesis, and well, I don't, but it's an argument, and that I'm rebirthing a new relationship with money through bringing death to money.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but in terms of the actual impact of those declining birth rates, I mean, well, I've already said, the whole situation is just awful, and I'm lucky enough to know a few people in Extinction Rebellion, and I've spoken to them about this. Uh, when you come to terms with, and I'm sure that this is something you've experienced because of what you've done, but coming to terms with death, with the scale of death that is looking like it's going to happen on the planet. It's just it's a really unsettling thing.
Mm.
Um,
And there's not much in
and
history to refer back to. Like maybe the Black
no,
Death is kind of in the same ballpark, but the
yeah,
details are so different with what's coming in the next century.
yeah, it is. Yeah, and the black the you know, I think if you were a peasant with the Black Death, it's an act of God. This is stuff we're doing,
Mm.
you know,
Mm.
and I think that's the horrific thing. Yeah, so yeah, we should all be doing what we think is right to do to try and mitigate what's coming and trying to change. That's certainly sort of my attitude. And I mean, there'll be lots of people who think, oh, what I'm doing is stupid and idiotic and what have you. That's fine, but that's part of what you've got to bear doing what you want to do. There'd be plenty of people that get it too and interested in it, my the way I look at it is, I'll max out my credit cards. I'll spend my resources in it. I'll spend my time doing it. I'm not a rich man. I'm a poor man, and I have to hold down a job to kind of do all my stuff. But I'll put all the energy I can into trying to make a difference to, maybe just nudge, if I can nudge this thing a little bit the
Mm.
right way. But it's a desperate situation, and I'm not. One of the things that I don't tend to do, and I do know a lot of people do this, but this idea of kind of prep work, I suppose. I you know I Yeah, I mean that's not really where I'm at. I'm kind of I can understand it, and I think that certainly looking, the sort of stuff that you do with looking at different plants, and it's like it's working on the assumption that we can find a way through into a future, and we're going to need this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Buying a bunch of tins of food is not really where I'm at.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, do you think funerals are um, have huge potential for rituals to return to them, like money burning? What about people who get all the money out of the bank and like get cremated alongside, like, their life savings as a big middle finger to their ungrateful children or non-existent children? Maybe they never had any.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of uh, on the edge of involved. So the KLF, I mentioned earlier, the band that burned £1 million, have the People's Pyramid they run at the moment. So I've got this. So this is my brick of moo here. I'll show you this. So that brick there. So they're
Ah,
building a pyramid out of bricks like this. And what you do is when you die, you put 23 grams of your ash in there, and this brick gets laid in this pyramid, which is being built in Birkenhead near Liverpool.
oh wow.
And so this has been going since 2017, which was 23 years after they burned the £1 million on the 23rd of August, 1994. And incidentally, I was then on pilgrimage to Jura when they burnt the money in 2017, and they launched this thing. So I love those sort of little connections between it all. But they have a big ritual around death, and it's a different ritual to the rituals we've got now, which need to change. We need lots more ritual. We need diverse ritual, and we need to be doing conscious ritual like the KLF are doing,
Mm.
of consciously trying to change our brains and the way we see these things. And the emotions we have around it are raw and old. And so when people take their bricks and lay them on the thing, they're crying and they're feeling the same hurt and grief that we all feel. But there's a different community around it. At least they're trying to build a different community around it.
Mm.
So I think it's really important, and I think we need much more of that, new rituals around death. I mean, yeah, I think that if I wasn't doing what I'm doing, that's what I would be interested in doing is death rituals.
Hmm. Hmm. Now, there's also hints that euthanasia is becoming more broadly acceptable in Western countries. likely in response to like growing demographic and economic stresses. And could you see that developing its own set of rituals, that it's a time where you choose to end your life? And like, could it even get swept up in reality TV that people like get their 5 minutes of fame by doing something spectacular to end their life?
Uh, I've had those thoughts. I had those thoughts myself, so I wouldn't want to speak to sort of a social thing because obviously it's a very dangerous path to go down. But yeah,
Mm.
I like the idea of making that decision. To say, well, I'm out here now. You know what I mean? I'm gone. I think it's a very difficult thing because your life is not your own. You've got your friends, you've got your family, and if your going is going to hurt them, uh, well, it's always going to hurt them. I mean, see, this is how impossible it is.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think that if we could change how we are in the world and accept loss a little bit more, I think it would be I think ultimately it could be a great thing, a wonderful thing to be able to say, I've lived a fantastic life, but my time has come. I'm going to do it. Game show. I'm not sure about that one. I mean, yeah, it probably would. But if we carried on with financialized capitalism the way it is, then yeah, we would end up there. There's a film called Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger years
Hmm.
ago. What was a game show of like criminals, and basically that's come true. That's that sort of idea. So it wouldn't surprise me if we headed down that path. But the general idea, yeah, I think that would be. I think if it happened, didn't happen in the correct way, then humankind would have made an amazing advance.
Mm.
Uh, uh, you know, um,
I don't know if you agree, but my intuition is that if states and corporations on that scale try to manage that process, it's going to be dystopian and a disaster. But if
Absolutely.
smaller connected communities form around it and it happens on a smaller scale, if they make mistakes, they will be smaller ones that we have a chance to learn from as a culture before things become, ridiculous and horrific.
Yeah, and I think in a sense that already happens, in terms of people take, a doctor injecting maybe a bit more methadone than they should, and people then just drifting off. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And I think that's happened all across, all over the years, and I think it's probably more difficult for that to happen now. I think it shows that there's limits to how effective laws and guidelines and professional stuff can be in those intimate moments. And death is an intimate moment, and ultimately it's our choice. That's the fundamental freedom of being a human being, is deciding when it's your time to go. So
Mm.
yeah, it's a difficult subject to talk about,
Yes.
and a difficult one to, as you say, if corporations and states get hold of it, no, it would be a disaster. But
Mm.
if we could find a way to do it uh, between ourselves, then yeah, that would be a wonderful thing.
Mm, mm. Now, that's why I left death to the end. But a fun final question that I ask everyone, and you get the version about if you could wave a magic wand and create a new religion or a new cultural practice, what would you summon into the world?
Wow, it's the obvious thing, isn't it?
You're already
Everyone's
doing
got to be
it.
paid with money. Yeah, I'm already doing it. So yeah, so at
If
the
you had a
moment I'm
whole
writing
extra
this.
lifetime and you could work on something completely different, what would you do? It might inspire someone else out there to go down that path.
Oh, blimey, that's a good question. If I had, yeah, yeah, okay. Oh, that's a really tricky one. What do I do? So let's assume that the money and the sex thing is sorted. Uh, well, I think I'd do what you suggested earlier. I think I would. So let's assume that. I can have a bit of success with Church of Burn and get my money burning religion going, I would do the sex thing. I would try and wave a magic wand to to expand the way we experience sex, so we can experience it in the sort of raunchy kind of animal side of it, but also the spiritual and the sacred side of it, and
Mm.
just our sexual alphabet would just be, our sexual language would just be richer, and we would be more fulfilled as human beings, and life would just be that much more full of joy
It's a little bit
if we
like
could do that.
psychedelics, that the set and the setting can dramatically change the experience.
Yeah.
And you could almost have like institutions with architecture and music that and trained people who like lead it in different directions,
Mm.
show you what's possible. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, this has been an amazing talk. And where can people learn more about your work and maybe get involved if they're in the UK, or I think there's other churches of this kind springing up around the world.
Well, let's hope so. Yeah. Well, you only need a lighter and some money, and you're there. But yeah, churchofburn.org is where you can go. So that's the main website. And I hang out in the vestry, which is my Substack. But if you just go churchofburn.org, you'll find the links on there. Yeah. Oh, thanks very much, Shane. It's been
Yep,
fun talking to you.
brilliant. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, John.
Take care.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to support the show, sign up for a paid subscription to my Substack to unlock the archive, or you can get a free subscription and see weekly posts before they go behind the paywall. Next week, we'll be talking to plant breeder and community organiser extraordinaire Nate Kleinman from the Experimental Farm Network.